Well, Avid, I guess you've done this to yourself. But for this guy, that's no surprise. It's no surprise at all. I'm going to give you guys a quick background on myself as it relates to my previous relationship with Avid for over 2 decades. I was a mix user and then an HD user using their TDM cards, and then upgraded to HDX. And I was on the forefront of all of those technologies. I've spent way too much money on Avid products over the years, and there was a time when they were absolutely needed. There's no question about it. Computers weren't as powerful as they are today, and there really wasn't anywhere near the competition that exists today as well. About 3 or 4 years ago, I started to get very, very frustrated with Avid and their policies, especially when they introduced the subscription model. I thought that that was going to be the demise of them. I could not imagine why in the world anybody out there would subscribe to a mediocre digital audio workstation by today's standards. I mean, let's face it, if you think you need Pro Tools, you could not be more wrong today. That is the truth for about 98% of people using digital audio workstations today. Yes, there are some that still need to use it, and I concede that. I absolutely concede that. But what people don't realize, and I can understand this and I can relate to this because you simply don't know what you don't know. I thought I was going to have a lot of problems migrating away from HDX. I thought, I've been on this for so long, there's no way in the world my computer is going to be able to keep up. Then came along Apple Silicon. Now, yes, I am a Mac user, so that's an important update to me. I'm in no way saying Mac is better than PC. I've got a lot of videos out there stating the fact that I think you can do great work on either one of them. That said, I'm a Mac guy. And with my M1 Pro, MacBook Pro, I mean the very first Pro version of it, it destroyed everything my HDX card could do. I can track through hundreds of tracks, through hundreds of plugins with no audible latency at a buffer of 64. I said hundreds of plugins at a buffer of 64. I have not once ever had to raise my buffer since I moved away. Now, to be fair, I don't use a lot of virtual instruments. So for those of you out there that do, you may find that a little bit harder to do. I can't speak to that. You know it better than I do. That said, I never needed it. And it was one of the most blissful things that I've ever had happen to me in all the decades that I've been involved in recording. And that goes back to the early 80s. I've been doing this a long time. Now, I've upset Avid over the years. I've had my share of controversies with them. I would voice my opinion on the DUC, which is their online forum that they own, and they have every right to do whatever they want to with it. But just because you can does not mean that you should. If you can't welcome the criticism of your users, what does that say about you? Because I was just one person out there saying the same things. And my frustration with this greedy company, it got to the point where they banned me from the DUC. They banned me because they didn't like what I had to say. I was always professional about it. I never did any personal attack. I simply stated facts, and they couldn't handle them. They wanted me to simply go away. Well, then I developed this channel, and I developed an audience. And I've grown this channel by being incredibly honest. Every review that I've ever done has been genuine and honest. I cannot be bought and sold by any company out there. Now, Avid reached out to me saying, basically implying, let's build a bridge. Let's get past all of this. So I had conversations with their VP of product development. And throughout all that, they wanted to bring me in on the newest tech. They wanted to make me part of what they had coming forward. Basically, they were like a pharmaceutical company causing you to bend at the knee and bow to their will. I laughed at them. I literally laughed at them. That was the first time I laughed at them. They didn't like it too well, to the point they actually implied that they were going to bring out their lawyers against me. I laughed even harder at that time. I said, bring it on, boys. Bring it on. I cannot be bullied. I welcome that opportunity. So give it a try and let's see who wins in public opinion. Of course, they backed away from that very quickly and our conversations stopped. Now, again, my biggest gripe, I've had a lot of gripes with them, and there was a time it was a good company. But ever since the private equity gets involved, All they do is sit around and give themselves high fives in the boardroom and celebrate their successes and their bonuses at the end of the year. Meanwhile, they're laying off hundreds of people. I've never met a single person who used Media Composer and liked it. Not one. They all hate it. They all say, I wish we could get away from it, but we can't. I understand that. I get that. But that still speaks to the fact that they're making garbage even at the professional level. Recording studios are dead at this point. For all intents and purposes, they're dead. You don't need DSP in your recording studio. Majority of you simply don't need it. Some of you do, as I stated before. So what has Avid done exactly? Well, they've boxed themselves into a corner and made their products unwanted by just about everybody. Everybody I talk to hates Pro Tools and hates Avid. Only those with their head buried in the sand will say positive things about them. They may work with it because they feel they need to, and I have total respect for that. Look, we all get to choose which digital audio workstation we use, and we get to choose what gear we buy. And I'm not here to criticize anybody on any of that. You make your choices. I've already made mine. I moved away back there on that screen. I use Cubase today, and that was a hard transition. And thanks to Chris Salim, Chris, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your last name. He has a YouTube channel. I'm sure you know who he is. I actually bought his course. One of the best values I've ever spent on anything audio related was buying Chris's course. It made that transition so much easier because Cubase does come at it from a totally different perspective. That said, I've got a lot of respect for Studio One. I like Logic. I use all of those here in the studio, and I enjoy them all. So back to Pro Tools. This whole subscription nonsense really pissed me off. It really upset me. And then they did away with perpetual. They made it where you could no longer buy a perpetual license. What kind of idiocy is this? And of course, I applied a ton of social media pressure as well as others did too. And I'm confident that I, as well as others, played a role in forcing their hand to bring it back. Now all I see is I'm flooded with emails, save 33% or whatever the crappy percentage is on their god-awful ripoff. You get absolutely nothing for anything. You absolutely own nothing. And that is a subscription to Pro Tools. You're being suckered. That's all I can tell you. You're being suckered. Those that think they're getting a great deal with the education version of that, I do agree it's priced competitively. But other manufacturers do the same thing. You just got to do your homework. So I was perusing through Reverb yesterday because I've got things for sale out on Reverb. I make custom panels for my Softtube Console 1, which I absolutely love. There's a link to my Reverb store down below, as well as my affiliate links to Sweetwater and Tomin. Just don't use those links to buy Avid. I'd rather not have a piece of that pie. That's blood money as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, I decided let me go do a search on used HDX cards. The average price of sold units was around $1,400 to $1,500. $1,400 to $1,500. Now, I would understand that low price if there'd been an announcement that they're going to come out with an updated card system, but they're not. HD cards never lost their value based on a percentage that Avid is losing money on their used cards with TDM. The only time TDM prices truly dropped significantly is when HDX came out. Understandably so. They were a much more powerful card than what you could get on a TDM. $1,400 to $1,500. Ask yourself, what does a brand new HDX card cost? Well, let me tell you. $5,000. Avid is selling a single HDX card for $5,000. And guess what? It doesn't come with Pro Tools Ultimate. You got to buy that on top of that. So what a scam this is. And for those people out there that say, I can just write it off, I run a business. Well, wasting your business's money is stupid. And you can also write off that $1,500 for that Mint used card. The likelihood that you're going to need warranty on a new HDX card is about slim to basically zero. There may be a few exceptions to that, but I have owned a lot of cards from Avid over the years, and I've never had a single problem with a single one of them. So I guess that speaks to their build quality. Well, their build quality better be good at $5,000. What is it doing for you? If you think you need DSP, buy a new computer and give it a try without it in a different digital audio workstation. Avid intentionally makes Pro Tools harder to use in any kind of low latency mode with non-Avid hardware. It works, yes, but you're always going to get better performance out of Avid hardware. Isn't that suspicious alone? It certainly is to me. Just look at the Carbon as an example. I bought a Carbon before I moved away from Pro Tools. And honestly, it was a great sounding interface in my ears. But it has zero true expandability. The ADAT ports are basically useless. You can't use them to expand the system. You can bring in your own mic pre's, but you got to use hardware inputs to be able to utilize them. You can't bring in something that has ADAT out and go into it that way, freeing up your existing inputs. And then they decide to sell an 8-channel pre for over $3,000 that has good preamps as far as an interface goes, but it's not worth $3,000. It's barely worth $1,500. It's just insane. So Avid, the people are telling you, we don't want your garbage anymore. We're only willing to pay $1,500, and where do you think it's going to go but down from here? It's going to keep sinking and sinking and sinking because Avid is a sinking ship. If you've got any comments, leave them down below. But until next time, I hope you have a great day. I truly do. Appreciate every one of you. Bye-bye.